Hello everyone, Miss Scott here. Today we are going to be describing angle pair relationships, and we are going to discuss the different types of angle pairs. So the first type is called complementary angles, and complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. Alright, so for example, say we have this 30-degree angle, and over here we have a 60-degree angle. If you put those two together, they would form 90 degrees, so we say these two angles are complementary. Supplementary angles, on the other hand, are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. Alright, so for example, say we have this obtuse angle. Let's say it's 120 degrees, and then over here we have this 60-degree angle. Well, those two angles add up to 180, so we would say that they are supplementary. And adjacent angles, we discussed this actually in the last lesson a little bit. Adjacent angles are two angles at touch. So say we have this angle here, and off of it we put another ray. Well, we could call this here angle 1 and this angle 2. We would say that angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent because they are touching. Okay, let's look at one more definition here. A linear pair has to meet two things. So it's two adjacent angles, and they're also supplementary. So it's two adjacent and supplementary angles. Alright, so there are two angles that make a line, you could think of it as. So right here, if you have a line and then a ray coming off of that, this angle 1 and angle 2 would form a linear pair. Alright, so now let's just go through some real quick examples of finding what's supplementary and what's complementary to a given angle. So in example 1, we're given 80 degrees, and we're asked to find the supplement and the complement to that. Well, 80 plus what is 180? 100. So those two would form 180 degrees, making them supplementary. The complement would be 10 degrees, because if you add those, 80 plus 10 gives you 90 degrees. Alright, so let's try another one here. 67.5 degrees plus what plus 112.5 degrees adds up to 180 degrees. 67.5 plus 22.5 degrees is 90. Alright, last one here. 115 degrees plus 65 degrees will give us 180. And 115 degrees plus what would give you 90? Well, 115 degrees is already obtuse. There's no way that you can add something. You can't have negative angles in order to end up with 90. So this is actually not possible. I was trying to trick you. Sorry about that. But if it's over 90 degrees, it can't have a complement. Okay, so now we're going to do a little practice with our algebra skills here. Number 4 says find the value of x. Well, notice that this 2x and the 3x minus 10 form a right angle. So they're complementary. So we can add 2x plus 3x minus 10 and say that has to be 90 degrees. Alright, let's combine some like terms. I've got this 2x plus 3x is 5x minus 10 equals 90. We'll continue by adding 10 to both sides. These cancel. We end up with 5x equals 100. So lastly, if we divide by 5, 100 divided by 5 gives us 20. So x equals 20. Okay, so now what do you notice about example 5? Find the measure of angles CBD. What do these two have to add up to? Well, they make a straight line. Remember, a straight line is 180 degrees. So we're going to take the 5x minus 22 plus 8x plus 46 and say that that equals 180 degrees. We have a couple like terms. First, let's combine 5x plus 8x is 13x. And then we've got negative 22 plus 46. So that adds up to 24 equals 180. And let's just solve from here. Subtract 24 from both sides. These cancel. We end up with 13x equals 156. And if we divide by 13, 156 divided by 13 ends up giving us x equals 12. All right, one last quick step here because we do still need to plug in to find the measure of angle CBD. And angle CBD starts at C, goes to B, ends at D. So we're talking about this angle here. So we got to plug in x for this expression. So 8 times 12 plus 46. Well, 8 times 12 is 96. So 96 plus 46 gives us 142 degrees for our answer. All right, so just remember to always go back and make sure you answered the question. So now we found the angle. The measure of angle CBD was 142 degrees. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of drawing here in example 6. Draw a linear pair of angles, angle XYZ and angle WYZ. Well, I like to start with this. I notice that Y is in the middle. So when I make my linear pair, which remember, a linear pair makes a line, I know that Y is going to be in the middle. The other thing I look for is what letter do those share? Well, they both have a Z in them. So Z has to be the point in the middle that cuts it into two angles and creates a pair. And then the last thing is I just have to put the remaining letters. So I'll put X on one side and W on another. So now notice we have angle XYZ and angle WYZ, and those create a linear pair. They make a straight line. All right, another term for you today is vertical angles. We'll be using vertical angles quite a bit throughout this course, so let's give it a definition and do a little practice with those. Vertical angles are angles that are across from each other when two lines cross. And we'll draw a picture of that. So if you have two lines that cross, this angle 1 and angle 2 would be vertical angles because they're across from each other. So angle 1 and angle 2, for example. All right, and we're going to use this diagram to describe the types of angle pairs. All right, so angle 4 and angle 5. These two here, notice that they make a straight line, they're next to each other, so they're adjacent supplementary angles, which is the definition of a linear pair. All right, next we have angle 5 and 8. So 5 and 8, those look like they're across from each other, That's what we just talked about. Those are vertical angles. All right, and lastly, angle 1, 2, and 3. Well, they are all next to each other and they do make 180 degrees. But a linear pair, the word pair means two. So all we can really say about these 3 angles is that they're supplementary. If it was only 2 angles, we could say a linear pair, but you can't have a pair if you have 3. All right, I appreciate you guys tuning in today. If you have any questions, come find